Hey everyone, welcome to Pencil versus Pixel. I'm your host, Caesar, and I'm just thrilled to introduce today's guest, Trent Walton. Welcome to the show, Trent.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Trent is co-founder of the very awesome Paravel, a web design and branding shop in beautiful Austin, Texas. He and his company have done work for Microsoft, Do Lectures, and the Build Conference. He's also a writer and shares what he learns on TrentWalton.com. We're going to dig a little deeper into what you do, Trent, but before we get started, pencil or pixel?
I'd say both. Mostly probably pixel. Like you could give it a good 80% or so. But there's so much less friction when you have an idea to just pull out a damn pencil and draw what's on your mind. But I'd say even now recently, the two guys I work with, the three of us, we work remotely, and so sometimes it is just quicker. It's like, is it quicker to draw on paper, take a photo, let Dropbox sync it, and then put it in chat, or just freaking draw some boxes or something in Photoshop? But I don't know. There's something I like about the informality of sketching. Jason Santamaria said in a talk that I didn't see, but I saw tweeted, and it was like, ideas want to be messy, and there's something about just like the path of least resistance when you're trying to articulate what's on your mind to the people who you're working with, kind of the day to day. But mostly, the craft, the job that we do, it's pixels. So most of it's pixels.
Nice. So a little bit of both.
Yeah, a little bit of both. Yeah.
Trent, let's get to know you a little bit better. Go ahead and give us an overview of what you do.
So I work with two of my best friends out here in the Austin, Texas area. Dave and Reagan live in Austin, and I'm a little bit outside. From the beginning, we had sort of specialized in, well, it wasn't specialized at all. It was everything for the web. So we'd work on, CMS implementations, e-commerce, and then all the things that we kind of still do today. We've moved from doing sort of like A to Z stuff to primarily front end. But I would even say that starts with any kind of initial planning stuff. We like to be involved from any kind of like planning, UX, IA stuff, and all these little jobs that we sort of segmented and specialized the web into. We like to kind of do those up until, front end code being like CSS and JavaScript and HTML is either handed off, or now more likely we're working with a team that's doing that, and we're all working very closely together. And that's what we specialize in now. Most of our clients are sort of large, so they have people that can do all of this stuff. So we sort of bolt on and help. And the three of us being friends since high school, I think it kind of makes it a little bit easier. We know each other really well, so it's very easy to step into a situation with lots of new personalities and things at play. And the three of us sort of, I think, operate really well because we've been doing it so long. We can sort of adapt our roles or our the little nuanced things about our personalities to kind of suit the situation. But yeah, that's mainly where we're at right now, helping clients build responsive sites.
So tell us, how did Paravel start? How did it all begin?
So we knew each other, just mutual friends and stuff in high school and college. And Reagan has always sort of been a designer, and he'd been involved in art, and he was an advertising. He was a major, I think it was an advertising program at UT. I forget exactly what you would call it. You'd say it better. And Dave started majoring in computer science, but then he shifted to Japanese,
Really?
Which we'll get to. But yeah, so Dave had always been a web builder. So he probably had like an AOL connection, and he was building websites in the 90s, and they were good. I mean, it wasn't like build your own site. This guy's coding and stuff. So
Wow.
He's been coding as long as the internet's been a thing. I would say maybe a little after. So he was the guy to go to. And I remember I was out of college, living in Austin, and I needed to know how to build a site. I wanted to. I had a job, in like a small portion was to build a site, and that became a large portion, and I almost became like adversely preoccupied with that in a good way. I guess it paid off in the long run. I paid Dave $80 to teach me HTML, and really probably more than that. It was Dreamweaver. It was just, he came over, and he was like, "This is an iframe. It's so a badass. Here's some tables, and get going." And after that, Dave, he majored in Japanese. He moved to Japan to teach English for 3 years. So our relationship, even, I mean, we'd been friends for a long time, but our sort of like coding working relationship evolved over instant messenger. So every night or morning for me, I can't remember when the time zones lined up that we would both sort of be awake and not at our day jobs, but we would check in on instant messenger, and I would ask him about problems I was having, or even just more of a show and tell. And for 3 years, we just did this. And so when he came back, I was in a position that I had worked for a company to build. There were 7 sites that needed to be built, and I had done that for about a year. And when that was finished, it was sort of Dave had gotten back, and he'd been working with Reagan at a real estate development company, building sites and all sorts of stuff. And Reagan was designing. And we just decided that it was important for us to be in control of our own destinies. We wanted to take the jobs we wanted to take. We wanted to decide how we would work and where we would work. And we wanted to be in control of our own lives, I guess you could say. And so we all quit. I had a little bit of money saved from the other job just to sort of add us along. Not that we weren't really stressed out. I mean, we were very worried. I mean, every month came around, and we would, be concerned that we wouldn't be able to make enough.
How did it feel? How did it feel like right after you quit?
When I quit, I was excited then because we had a little bit of money, but like I knew that in a few months that would be gone. Yeah. So it's like it's like if you buy something in your life, it's almost like that. It's like we bought time, and so that was really exciting. And then every month, the first would come up, and gosh, it's really weird to think about this now, but every month it would come around, and I would kind of wake up, and it was more than their jobs, like them being sort of the design and the development specialists. It was my job to sell the work. So I had to wake up and like call friends, call people that I knew that were starting businesses, and just sort of like get whatever we could. And I mean, we had no project minimum, which we definitely do now at the time. But at the time, there was no such thing. It was like we built sites for people that we knew. We built sites for our friends' parents. We built sites for anyone, just to sort of, it was 2 things. We needed to make money, and we also needed to have good work to show. And so that was sort of what we were after. For about 2 or 3 years, it was sort of this, and I bet a lot of people are in this sort of mode, like mass production. We'd do it like a site every couple of weeks. And I think we did well. I don't think we made as much as the sites were worth, but we had to sort of make sure that they were pretty good. But there was 0 time for anything else. There was barely any time for like continued education and learning. We did that. I mean, none of us had kids at the time. We all have kids now, but it was just, that was our education in every way. For me, I think, we obviously, like, the web was changing, and so we learned to sort of, we had always had this appetite since Dreamweaver in 2001 or whatever, but to be responsible for what you can do, and to know every little piece of the web, and try to just be responsible for your own further education. I mean, you definitely couldn't go to school and learn how to build a website and then think you're done learning. I mean, I don't think any industry that works. But so we're sort of like running on all cylinders, and I think it would have only lasted so long. Because it's like you're every second you have, and then even free time is like working with clients, getting a new client in the door, getting them, getting everything done, getting everything launched, so you can do the next one, so that you're not running out of money. It was a very busy time, and even then, I don't think we weren't making enough to sustain ourselves, which is when we made a big shift. Which I'll just go ahead and get into that.
Yeah.
We stopped filling our time. We had some jobs. I think that we probably had a little bit of a cushion, but it was probably even more of a risk than starting. But a couple of years into it, it sort of became this. I have a post that sort of generally speaks to it. It was after the fact, but it's like kind of this idea of you are what you eat, and if you do these jobs, they're going to define they're going to define your skill set. They're going to define what you're known for. So if you're doing jobs you don't like and people sort of like, oh, and I mean, we don't like to do the back end stuff as much as we used to, but we were doing a lot. We built a CMS, and so we would do e-commerce implementations and CMS implementations, and that was sort of what we were known for very locally. And we didn't want to do that anymore, and so we had to stop. We had to absolutely stop. And what we really loved was front end code and focusing on the new stuff. And how on earth would we be hired to build that, like stuff like that? No one that hires us here in town cares about text shadow.
So then tell us about how you were able to get those kind of jobs, what you really wanted to do.
Yeah,
I'm sure you're getting into it, but
yeah, sure. So we started to do stuff for free. I mean, it's like people, well, not work for people, not work for clients. It was we had side projects.
okay.
That's very
Okay.
very important to clarify that. We did side projects, things that we wanted to put out there to just show. I mean, they were fun, and that could be the end of it. Like, we just wanted to do it. Why not? Because the big benefit was we learn more. You know, there's one thing to read an article about CSS property or some JavaScript or something. It's another thing to use it and to master it to an extent to where you understand how it works. So we started doing stuff. The first thing that I can remember, aside from blogging and just sort of doing these little like CSS experiments on the side, was the Many Faces Of. And it's an old site that we'll probably kind of get back to soon, but I wanted to write a post on my site about Alan Rickman, the actor, as a villain, and I was just like thinking, it's really funny, this guy, because he plays villains so well, but there's an Alan Rickman way of doing it, and so I wanted to write this post that analyzed, like, you know, he says the hero's last name in every movie, kind of like super pissed. So like, Alan, if it's Harry Potter, it's Potter, or Die Hard, it's McLean. Quigley Down Under, and Loxley from that Kevin Costner. Alan Rickman is the sheriff of Nottingham, Robin. But anyways, and there's millions of things. It's like, have the funny beard and the right hairstyle and whatever. Anyways, but what this turned into was sort of like a CSS, at the time, CSS3 infographic. So all of this is selectable text. We're using every new property, and we're putting this out, and people think it's pretty funny. And it was received really well. And that made us feel good. I mean, our people that we looked up to, people whose work we respected, they're like, this is neat, and we couldn't believe it. So it kind of created monsters then, because so then we started doing more posts, and then we would blog more, and that's sort of where things started to shift. We would use the new stuff, and if somebody needed help or needed to hire somebody who knew the new stuff, we were at least being thought of. At some point, I remember somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago, was it ever like a goal to be the best at something? And I don't think anyone should think in those terms. I think our goal, if there was a business goal, well, our goal was to have fun, and we were having fun, and we were learning. And if anything, it was like, thank God we're not killing ourselves only at client work 100% of the time. We may have burned out really quickly there. The other goal is we just wanted to be thought of when it was time to hire somebody for that, and whatever that is. And for us, we liked front end code, and so we wanted people to be like, well, I have this really fun job, I don't know how to do it, that Paravel may know how to do it, and that kind of happened. So we just wanted to be, honestly, it sounds funny, but we just wanted to be thought of if the time came when somebody wanted to hire us for that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Were you doing other work on the side? Oh, so these were side projects, right?
Yeah, about 60 or 70% of our time was client work. And then sometimes it was like, at that point we still didn't have kids. And so there was time, more time than there is now in the evenings to do it. But even still, if you're busy and you don't have time, I think for us it was, it allowed us to take control of the type of work that we were doing, to say, we're not being hired for this. No one's going to look at somebody who's not doing the work. Right. You have to demonstrate that you can do this work. It's sort of like, if you know you're capable or you're interested and you have this sort of potential energy, no one's going to recognize that unless you put it out there. So we just needed a little bit of show and tell, and it paid off. So yeah, but we were doing client work at the same time. I mean, we were fortunately we were able to sort of like shift our hourly rate. We were doing hourly at the time to offset a little bit of that, to sort of
Nice.
make sure that we could pay bills while we were doing it. But it was very important to us, and I think that was like probably one of the most significant changes in our progress as a company was to just say, you know, we're going to do what we like to do as opposed to like what somebody will pay us for, even if we hate it. So
So you said that one day all three of you decided we're going to stop doing, or we're deciding not to focus our attention on client work, right? Or
or like, well, just the some of the jobs that we didn't like, a lot more of the back end heavy stuff.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
But
So.
let's take it back a little bit. When did you decide to get into design? Was it something you wanted to do for a long time? Was it something that sort of developed over time?
Yeah, in school it didn't exist. Web design didn't exist, and I definitely I would classify myself as a self-taught web designer. So if I had to chart it back, and I'm probably even stretching it, but I think when I was young, I grew up around the muscle car culture. My dad has a '69 Shelby, and he just got a bunch of old Mustangs that he fiddles with and works on and restores. Sort
Does
of
he
a
still
hobby of
have
his.
them?
But we went. Huh?
He still has
Yeah.
them?
Oh, yeah. We're surrounded by
No
this stuff.
way.
So
Wow.
yeah, yeah. My brother is a mechanical engineer, but his actual, I mean, so he had job offers from like Shell and whatnot. But it was like he wound up. He restores cars, races cars. Those I'm not I'm not as I don't know anything that they know. But that's what I grew up around. So we'd go to
Yeah.
car shows, and I grew up around swap meets, and I'd be surrounded by like these beautiful car manuals for like you know main lines and Fairlanes and newer stuff like the Shelbys and the Cobras, and the typography on these things was
Yeah.
really neat. And you think of like chrome badges. I used to buy that, like I'd spend all my allowance on like hood ornaments and stuff at these things, just because I thought they were so beautiful. I mean, I thought they were cool. I mean, and if you're a kid, it's not a hard stretch. Like there was like a '69 Shelby had this like mean looking snake, like the Cobra. So of course you're gonna buy it. It's sort of almost like a really hard, dangerous action figure, a big piece of metal you can throw. But anyways, that's maybe where design started for me. I appreciated that this was good. This was good stuff, and aesthetically, and sort of the things about it. The cars, they were red and bright, and they had cool stripes. That was one thing. But I mean, I even remember being a child and thinking like the coolest thing on here is the sticker that says GT 500, and that like condensed tall type. I mean, it's influenced me heavily. So all this goes on, and I took art classes and stuff in school, but I can't draw. Maybe I can. I just don't. I haven't really worked at it very much. But it really design for me hit when I got sort of into. I got computers. I had like this Compaq that I would just take pic. This is like right when digital cameras were out. I mean, at the very beginning, I'd take photos and tile them, and I'd make like backgrounds, and I'd
Like two
learn how to.
megapixel cameras?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so I'd get into that, and really like before it was, before the web, it was sort of just like making things and printing them off on crappy printers. It looked terrible, but it was, I mean, and I had terrible choice and type. Like I remember copper plate was my thing, just because it was so characteristic. It was like
Yeah.
copper plate, probably Zapfino or something. Um, but it was this new world for me. I was it was like freshman in high school maybe, and so anyways, all that happened, and that was sort of the end to it. And then anywhere I was in college, if I was you know in any sort of a group, a campus group, or if there was anything that I was involved in, I was always the guy who's like, I'll build the site. I got all this, and that just sort of any job I would have, I would want to do that, and then eventually I started to get hired to do that
Nice.
specifically. And for me, I think it had to be the web. I mean, I've done print stuff, but not much, because I really like. Well, and these days are over, but FTP. I love this idea of like, I'm in the mood to make this, and I'm going to put it up right now. Like I used
Throw
to
it out
think,
there, yeah.
what the hell? What does it take people like a week to build a site? And now it's like it takes us like 3 or 6 months depending on the job.
Yeah.
And sites are way more complicated than they were in like 2001. But I loved it. Like to wake up and I'm going to make a message board and I'm going to get, I don't know anything about a database. So it's going to take me like 3 days and like up all day and all night to get this thing wired when some professional could do it in 20 seconds. It was that really scrappy time of being utterly responsible for every piece of the web that, you learn how to register a domain, wire it to hosting, upload some stuff, and you call it index.html. That's how the internet works. Badass. And you learn these things yourself, and it takes forever.
Yeah.
But what happened was that's still a big part of our lives now. SAS, what the hell is my freaking style sheet not compiling? This is terrible. These things never stop. And so you have to go, whether you're self-taught or not, I think everybody, there's always going to be something that you don't know. Yeah. And getting to the point where, even if you have a little bit of help, but you don't know, and you're just like, I'm going to sit here and try random crap until it works. For me, that was when I really fell in love with web design. It was just like, oh wow, like 1 minute it's broken and the next minute somehow you had a semicolon and it fixed. So I fell in love with it through all that kind of stuff. I like that I could build something by myself if I wanted to.
Very cool.
Don't have to take anything to a printer. You don't have to, everything can just happen on a laptop.
So do you do anything at all print wise or
yeah. But it's never been sort of like a first love. Just the scrappy 72 DPI. Well, that's another thing in the past. But anything that's been print. I think at the beginning it wasn't what I was hired to do, so I didn't get into it. Reagan, and since I've worked with Reagan more, I've done a lot more print stuff just because I've been able to have a safety net there, which maybe contradicts everything I said about being scrappy about the web, but I chose the web, man. That's what I do. Yeah.
It's ever changing, but it's there, and it's always evolving and getting better. Getting complicated, but getting better, right?
Oh yeah, I think so.
So it's only three of you. Paravel's three of you. You, Dave, and Regan. Did you choose to stay small, or do you have any plans to grow the company, or what's your take on that?
We're pretty year to year on stuff, though. It's never come up. We've never had a serious discussion about expanding. I just think I don't know. I don't know every company intimately, but I feel like we're somewhat unique. I don't know if you could call us an agency. I don't know what that is really anymore. But we're just a really small team, and since most of our work is bolting on to other teams, I've never really felt like I've absolutely never felt like our numbers have limited us. There's and this has nothing to. I'm not commenting on any other teams or agencies, but for us, there is zero extra anything. We do not have an office space. We all work from home. I used to have an office space, and we realized for us it didn't make sense. Most of our clients are out of town, most of our clients, they have really nice offices. Let's go there. I've never sort of felt bad that we don't. We don't have any extra staff. We've thought about maybe doing some project management, like adding a project manager. For us, though, that work, project management, like somebody posts something on Basecamp, a client, and us talking about how we should reply and how we should deal with it. And that doesn't saying that it's a bad thing, but just like how should we field this? What does this mean? All of this, what are we going to do next? I absolutely will never be able to separate that from design. I don't want somebody to go away and speak for me and come back and say, well, they said to do this. That sounds ridiculous to me. And so I'm sure, and this is just commenting on the way that we work, like I'm sure most project managers with the clients that we've worked with, at least, they're heavily embedded in the thinking and the thought process, and they're super valuable team members. But for us, since we bolt on, we have that. Like every client we've had for the past 2 years, they've had like a project or a product manager, and they're the leaders, and that's been great. But for us, there's no reason to not, other than it's just really working well, the dynamic that the three of us have. And so we haven't thought to change it. We've been able to make a healthy living, and we really still enjoy each other's company. And if we need extra help, we hire other teams, or we don't hire them. What we normally would say you're a client, and we need an e-commerce implementation. I would say, I have a friend. You should hire them. You guys do the contracting. We don't want to do any kind of like, we'll talk to them and we'll take 2% or some garbage. We'll bring our friends over and we'll all build together. It's sort of like that. But I mean, yeah, we just try to keep things as simple as possible and provide as much value for our time and talent as we possibly can for this thing that we specialize in, this planning, design, and front end code stuff. So,
how long does a project usually take you guys typically?
we sort of have been doing these things like 3 months or 6 months. It's sort of weird.
Yeah.
Things could obviously take 4 months or 5 months or 12 months.
Yeah.
It just depends, and it usually depends on two things. Like, pages are sort of weird because it's not like, at this point, I don't know whether we say pages or views, but we say like how much stuff, or we really, now, if you're accurate in stuff, you would say how many components do you need? Like, so it's usually, if I was to have a discussion with a potential client about building them like an estimate, be like, what are the pages that we'd be addressing? And maybe it's like a home page or something else. And then we'd say, okay, that's fine. That's almost just like a conversation starter. What's in that? What are the components in that page that we would be building? And so we figure that out. And then the other thing is, like, we try to get a read on what it's like over there. And this isn't to say that we're like, well, are you going to be really complicated and make life hard, or is it going to be easy? Not at all. It's, how much time do we need to spend thinking through things and planning? Some jobs are a little more straightforward than others. It's just the truth. So if we're inventing something new, or if we're redesigning something even that has a lot of people involved that have a lot of opinions that need to be heard, or if there's a lot of usability testing that needs to happen, there's all these things. But it's just, how much time do the clients need to get the right get the right thing, and then how much of that, how much code, how much design, how many pages, how many whatever. Those are the two sort of things we look at. But right now, we sort of try to do these. It's usually, we never decide this at the beginning. It's usually like 2 or 3 conversations in, but it's been these 3-month or 6-month chunks of time, and we get to know the clients, and we do a lot of planning and all this kind of stuff. So it usually takes, 3 if you want to do something right. I think at this point, that's a good number. But you might need to go over. Obviously, a lot of times we go. We've done stuff that's 6 months. We've done stuff that's a year. That launches little bits and pieces along the way. It just depends. We're just sort of, when you're bolting onto another team. Sometimes we're needed indefinitely for a very long time, or sometimes we do a piece and they're like, we got this, we don't need you, and that's fine. And so it's just whatever the client sort of needs. It's somewhere between planning ahead in 3-month chunks and pay as you go with us. We don't want to be around if we're not needed, and if we've done a good job sort of like sharing our experience and what we know with the team members, then we've done a good job, and maybe they don't need us anymore. So
very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So Trent, tell us about a time when something didn't go right. What happened, and what did you do about it?
I won't phrase this as like it's a regret. Maybe a little bit, but so like we had a job, and so we do all this sort of vetting, right? Like who's involved and how many pages, like everything I just said. But sometimes that's not what happens when you start going. Somebody, there's these things that people expect that they may have thought are easy, or don't take much time, just little bitty aspects of what, and those are brought up. And we're like, this is very significant, and this could take a lot of time. And so there's sort of this thing where you try to get very specific and granular with what a contract has in it. And then there's some times where you just kind of do some stuff to help out. And there was one job where it just never seemed to end. There was always like one little piece that they wanted extra, and and it was being paid for, but we really just wanted, we were done working at it, and I think we probably should have
terminated the contract at a logical phase where we could have turned the work over to someone else and not left anyone high and dry, but sort of stepped out. But I do think, I mean, it was a good experience because we're a little more guarded against that. But at the same time, we have this tendency. We start a job, we want to finish it,
Yeah.
and just because something was a little bit unforeseen doesn't mean that we should, we don't like it, we're out. We didn't, and we wouldn't want to be that way. So it was a tough call to sort of ride it out, and it took a long time. So that was probably one of the harder moments. It was a few years ago, but it seemed like the job would never end, and our tendency to want to just get the job done.
Yeah.
It conflicted with like sensible amount of work and like healthy work-life relation, balance and stuff like that.
Was this a client that you wanted to do work for?
Oh yeah, it was a great job. It was a fun job. We're proud of the work that we did. It just sort of, the work compounded and the expectations weren't as, I would say, well communicated or well understood as I thought they should have been. So yeah, I mean, but all this stuff, it's like that's the adventure of client services. I mean, things are going to be really great. Things are going to be a little complicated or whatever. You just need to be very sensible and level-headed about stuff and not reactionary in any way. And I think that's why maybe I don't regret it. I think it would be totally justified if we would have terminated the contract and handed it over to somebody else or whatever. But we, I think we always err on the side of like, let's take care of this person. I don't know. I mean, I'm not somebody who's like super big into measuring every kind of karma point or anything, but I do think that's a thing. It's like, just do the right thing. I mean, and that's sort of the advice. My dad had a company, and he's since retired, but he's given me tons of advice, whether I've asked for it or not. But the one thing he's always said is just, do a good job and be consistent, and the rest will take care of itself. And so, if you're upset and you don't like the way things are going, well, this freaking client services. I mean, you don't get to dictate whether every day you like the personalities you're dealing with. There's a bit of an unknown, and you take the highs with lows, and it makes life interesting. Sometimes bad interesting, but it's okay.
So what advice would you give to a up and coming designer, artist? Actually, what would you say to a person who has no idea on what to do if they want to have a website? Where do they start? What do they do? How do they get started? They have no idea about databases or code, CS. They don't know anything.
Yeah.
Where can they get started?
Or
what would you suggest?
A few years ago, I would have mentioned just like books. I still think that's a good thing, like a book apart. And I mean, there's thousands of books, but I would probably start there just because they're so small and specific to certain aspects of what we do. I like all these online deals like Treehouse, is it Code School, Code Academy, all these things. I think that's kind of cool. You get badges and stuff. Like, I probably need to beef up my JavaScript chops. We were having dinner with the weight shift guys on Sunday, and they were all like, "Yeah, and these guys who like Scott Robin and Dave Rupert, they're like, "Yeah, I took like an like last month I took an introductory to JavaScript class." They're like, "You?" And they're like, "Yeah, you'd be surprised like how many little things fall through the cracks if you're self-taught, And so I think those online things are very good. And like I was saying earlier, I think that you need to be ready for some inefficiency and some late nights, and it should be fun. That's maybe how you know if you like it and you're inclined to do it. That isn't to say that every night every week even you need to have this like up till 3 fighting something, but it's good to have a certain amount of those. So I think learn by doing, but get started with some books and some of those classes. Hack stuff, that there's like a demo with the class, or whatever, or you build something and then you're finished. Like, if you have an idea, do it. And if it's stupid and dumb, that's probably a good thing because no one's ever thought of it. I mean, you sort of stumble into new things and you sort of stumble into your way of doing things and you develop your sensibilities. So I'd say that. I mean, there's really probably no wrong way. read other people's stuff, look at other people's stuff, learn Web Inspector or whatever developer tools for whatever browser you like, and see how people do what they do if you like it.
And read your blog too. You always have something good to say.
Yeah,
Web design.
yeah. Read CSS tricks if you're trying to learn how to build websites. If you want an occasional opinion, I have like monthly opinions if I'm good.
Yeah.
If I'm really trying hard,
They are really good.
read my site. Yeah. If you want to learn how to do really ridiculous crap with text.
Speaking of writing, Trent, I'm always thinking about this, but do you have is there a future with where you're writing something? You come out with a book?
No, I don't think. I have no plans to do a book. I have a hard time writing. Like you said, I was a writer. I thought that was funny. I don't know if that's imposter syndrome.
Well, I consider you a writer.
I'm good at getting. I think I'm good at getting ideas across. It's a very painful process for me. I mean, this is probably like everybody who would call themselves a writer, if they're listening, they're like, yeah, that's how it is, jerk. You're describing like my life. But I mean, I love like I was saying earlier about like you can read an article or something, or you can have to use it as a demo, or you have to build something, or you have to write about it, and so or speak about it. I like kind of if it's something I'm interested in, I like pushing myself to have to be able to not only understand it but to try to explain it. So I like that about it. I mean, as for a book, I don't think I like doing client work. I like working with Dave and Reagan. I don't think, I mean, I've written chapters in books, and I wrote a thing. Is it an essay? Do you say I wrote a piece for? I don't even know. I wrote some words for the manual, and that was fun, But no, I don't have any plans to do a book. I mean, I might if I have like a book's worth of knowledge or something to say. But
do you plan to do anything other than client services down the road?
we have some, like, most of the product ideas we have are ones that need to be free. So,
yeah.
We built
I was going to ask you about this actually.
Yeah.
Fit text.
Yeah,
Fitvid.
Fitvids and lettering, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, how would you charge for that? Everybody needs it. Just give it. I mean, it would be. I mean, I'm not even. So I'm not even saying like, oh, look how generous we are. You don't charge for that crap. Squishy letters. Who would pay 50 cents? Who would bother with the PayPal account to do that? I don't think anyone. I mean, and it's this thing though. Like this is the nature of the web. I mean, how much. Everything I've learned is from watching other people and pulling their code. Like Dan Cederholm, I remember I told you, I built those 7 websites at that office in early 2000s. Right. How did I learn to do that? Dave Rupert, and then I went to Simple Bits and was like, view source, and I'm sure I lifted some of that code or whatever. I mean, it's just anything you can do. So how would you charge for that kind of stuff? I mean, if it's a service, like something like Basecamp, of course, like there's hosting involved, and this is this complex thing that somebody's developed. But if it's a little plugin that we used and we needed for something, we can now share it. You damn well better share it. It's like, I mean, even the idea. This is a funny thing that I had to admit. Like, if I had thought of something as amazing as like responsive web design, I think my first thought would have been like, how do I do it without giving all these like tips away? Whereas Ethan writes this book and he's like trying to simplify it, and it's like these 3 things. So that's the web. I mean, if you want to participate and benefit from the web, you have to contribute as well. So and I mean, so much of the web now sort of revolves around GitHub. It's like if you're filing issues and bugs for other people to solve, and you're not building anything for anybody else. That's not good. You're not helping. You're just, you're actually maybe preventing the web from being further developed. So if, for example, if somebody has like something that you're using and you're asking for help all the time, and they're spending time to help, that's great. That's how it should be if they have the time and it's all sensible and stuff like that. But if in turn there's nothing that you're doing to help along, then you've sort of sucked a little bit of the forward momentum out of the web, because that person who built this thing for us is helping you, but you're now taking a little bit of their time up that they could be building they could be using to build the next thing. So you have to be very careful about that. I think it's very important to contribute. I don't think we do it enough. I don't think anybody. Well, there's a lot of people I think do it. They're amazing and do a lot. But I think that's a very important thing. Whether it's just sharing knowledge in the way of a post, or speaking, or putting something up on GitHub for people to use, you got to do it. So
Definitely. Do you have any book you mentioned a few books, but do you have a specific book recommendation?
I really like. So one of my big things is I sort of get blinders on day to day, especially when working with David and Reagan, and sort of if there is sort of like a project management role component to one of our lives, it's probably more mine than theirs. They definitely help kind of every step of the way, but I sort of get just my head down and I'm focusing on the job, like, and I kind of sometimes will fail to think kind of more broadly or take a step back. And so Frank Camaro's book, The Shape of the Design, it's like these are thoughts that I would have if I or like not on the level that he wrote them. I'm not trying to say that, but thinking in this realm are things that I don't give myself time to do. So reading stuff like that's so thoughtful, and I mean, Frank, like anyone writing a book, I can imagine, but it's like it's painful to get these ideas out that you know so well, but into some sort of a form that people can sort of follow along and digest. And so, like, I like to just sort of pick that up every once in a while, and I'll read a few chapters. I read it straight through the day I got it, just because I love Frank so much and think he's cool. But
yeah, he's a great writer.
I found even more just like picking it. It's almost like the attitude in it is as good as the sum of the information in it itself, because it's just it's like a slow down and think about the reason why you're doing what you're doing, as opposed to what I would probably be doing is like, why is this column of CSS not positioning itself correctly? So I'm worrying about display block versus like why I'm doing this at all. Right. So I'd recommend that book for that main reason, is I think it's very important. I mean, I've talked a lot about the practical side of things, which is obviously very important. We have to know how to build things and get things to function and work. Yeah. But it's also very important to think about why we're doing that, and to make sure that the direction that we're headed with all of this code and fuss is in the right direction for the client, for the web, for humanity. I mean, if you wanted to get really big, my whole thing, even just thinking about that book, it's like my whole kind of priority sum is shifted just a little bit back to like, oh yeah, this is building for the web is an important thing, and it's good that we can share knowledge so easily. Anyways, but yeah, I recommend that book. If you haven't picked it up, pick it up, read it. It's cool.
So do you have one last piece of advice that you would give to a aspiring designer, web designer, artist? What would it be?
I'm gonna assume that they have like some sort of a strong desire to work really hard and hustle or whatever. So let's say that's there. I think that the biggest thing I would say is to recognize that the pace of the web is absolutely contrary to like, it's unnatural. The pace at which you can launch things and talk about things and things become old. I live outside of Austin in the country. I think to sort of subtly help combat that I want to be, there's a timing to nature, seasons and days and whatever, and the web is the opposite of that. So I think like on a general sense, to just not worry so much about like, and I do this, I refresh Twitter a lot or whatever, but I think to think about the fact that like there's a different pace when you're not staring right at your screen. And that can mean a lot of things. I mean, there's lots of knee-jerk reactions to like, I hate this new thing, or this looks dumb, or you get, there's arguments on the internet between, industry people, or you even writing like an email to a client, or posting on Basecamp, and there's even like a slight undertone of frustration, and maybe that needs to be there. But if you're doing that in the first 20 seconds of reading their post, I think that like it's very easy to get sucked into this light speed of the internet, and every single time I kind of go against that, it pays off. Sleep on it, give everybody the benefit of the doubt, that kind of stuff. The only other thing I can think of there is it's like driving. If you're walking down the street and you bump someone's shoulder, you're not likely, well, I'm not likely to like give them the bird or punch them or scream at them at all. Well, I'm not likely to do that anyways. But if you're driving down a busy freeway and somebody cuts you off, you're more prone to be like, F you, you're a jerk, I hate you. It's because you can't see their face is my theory, right? So like the web is similar. You have avatars, but it's very easy to forget that, you know, it sounds cliched or whatever, but we're all human, you know? And so I think just try to slow down and be nice. And I mean, there have been very few, debates are great, but there have been very few heated arguments that I think have done anybody any good. So just chill out, focus on the work. If anything, and this is maybe the only other piece that helps me there, is if you have some friends that you can get on chat with and gripe about something, if you want to have a knee-jerk hissy fit, which I do a lot, have some buddies, you know, make some friends, have some coworkers, and invest in them. That's it, you know, like having some people that know you outside of like avatars and stuff like that. I think it's very, very important. So yeah.
Very cool. So Trent, where can we find you besides TrentWalton.com?
I think the handle on everything is Trent Walton, all one word. It's like dribble and let's see, Twitter, Facebook a little bit. Probably not that much on Facebook. And I'm on Vine if you like videos of 2-year-olds.
Oh, okay.
But
that's a new one.
yeah. I mean, I've actually, it's a tangent, but I really like Vine for that reason. Yeah. Like I have tons and tons of videos of my kids that are like a minute long, and there's like one cool thing they say. To have like Vine, it's become and it saves it all to your camera roll. So it's about the same thing. But to have all these 6-second clips, you can really sort of like see an evolution of like all the funny things that have happened, or all like even just like, you know, physical growth. Like, oh, look how small or, you know, look how big they are now. All that kind of stuff, and these little bitty snapshots. So I like Vine for that. But anyways, that's neither here nor there.
Very cool. And everyone, you could find these links and everything that we talked about today on pencilversuspixel.com. That's pencilvspixel.com/Trent Walton. Trent, thanks a lot for all of your advice and everything you shared with us. And we hope to speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.